Good afternoon, Spartans. Happy Tuesday, September 19th. It is homecoming week. So I'll be efficient here with our time today to make sure you are maximizing what you can get done during our class time so you are able to enjoy the festivities that will be occurring throughout the week. Look at the discussion post. Many of you participated in the online discussion. Some great answers. Very pleased with the responses that I saw. Very much played out the way that I thought it was going to play out. So I have a couple of things to just point out to you. I don't think anybody was wrong, but a couple of things I want to point out. And then today and tomorrow, you're looking at the DBQ for Montesquieu. This one might take you a little bit of time to figure out, but you'll look at Montesquieu after. So the question that you got, the question that you had for earlier or late last week, earlier this week is, whose idea of government structure is better for today? Hobbes or Locke? Explain why. Unanimously or almost unanimously, I think Dakin argued for a strong government. That is clearly his opinion, and there are plenty of authoritarian governments that exist around the world, and they're supported by their people. Singapore, perfect example. Low crime rates, strict government, operate on the F around spectrum. F around, you find out. No one wants to find out, so they don't F around. Those types of governments exist. But there is a fear, there is a preponderance of chance that if you give the government all of the power, universal absolute power, that a dictatorship can exist. And as we look at Montesquieu tomorrow, you'll understand, even if the government is supportive of their people, if they care about their people, there will still be the presence of fear. Now, we're going to have differences of opinion regarding whether or not fear is a good thing for people to have of their government. I'll keep my own opinions to myself on that. But Hobbes, because he described the state of man as being so truculent, combative, that they needed a universal absolute power to keep people safe, to protect people's property. Not many of you chose him because you were worried about this whole dictatorship coming up. I will point out that there are many successful authoritarian governments. Well, I shouldn't say many. There are examples of successful, appreciated, respected authoritarian governments that exist in society. A lot of you picked Locke. And I think it's based on your answers. You think that government should enforce the natural laws. People should have the right to live. People should have the right to be free. People should have the right to own property. But somehow, I think we got caught on one of Locke's opening statements that people are born in this perfect freedom of equality and perfect state of freedom and equality. You synonymously impose on Locke's philosophy that people would be equal. And that's not necessarily true. One of the inherent problems, and it's a problem, you can say it's not a problem, or you can say, oh, it is a problem. There is an inherent problem with Locke's form of government. It's the potentiality of inequality to present itself. People are free. I would imagine most of us think that's a good thing. People are free to do as they choose. They're free to make their own choices. They are free to do as little or as much as they want. But what will happen is that inequality will present itself amongst the people. Some people will work harder than others and amass more. Their children, their family will have a completely different experience than someone who comes from a person who chooses to do very little. May be a problem, may not be a problem, but inequalities will exist. And this is kind of the situation that we're dealing with in the United States in the 21st century. John Locke was very supportive of a limited government, or what we would call a conservative government. The government should do as little as possible, not because they don't care, not because they don't appreciate their people, not because they're lazy, But for the government to do a single thing, doesn't matter. Declare a state bird, a national song, levy taxes, build roads, it doesn't matter. For the government to do anything, to take any action, that requires the people to give up freedom. In some way, shape, or form, it costs an American some percentage of their freedom. Conservatives, or Republicans in this matter, conservatives believe that the best solution to any person's problem is for the people to be as free as humanly possible to make their own choice, to figure out what is best for them to be successful. Democrats, on the other hand, or liberals, believe that it is the role of the government to do as much as humanly possible to support their people in any way, shape, or form, right? There are inequalities in the United States. There's different opportunities to access education, to access wealth, to be able to buy a home. The list could go on and on and on. Democrats or liberals think that the best possible solution is for the government to help them. This is the inherent problem of Locke's philosophy. We are a free country. We have a list of rights that are guaranteed to be protected. And if there are rights that are not listed in the Constitution, then, you know, we still inherit other rights that aren't even listed, right? What we can't do is actually specify it out in law. But we have inequality in our society. I don't know if you would consider that to be a problem or not, something to consider. My point being is Hobbes' form of government has an inherent possibility of dictatorship to present itself. But Locke's form of government isn't all, you know, candies and roses either. There are inherent problems with both. Do I think one is better than the other? Yes. But we need to understand that there is no perfect form of government. There will always be flaws to government. Both people talked about property, right? Hobbes talked about in this condition, in this state, there can be no industry. Well, industry is used to produce product. Product and industry are property. Locke is quite specific in property. We need to understand that property is a dog whistle here. All of these Enlightenment philosophers that we are talking about, who are coming up with these ideas of what government should do and government should be and why it's necessary and how it should exist, these are all wealthy people. These are all people from the wealthiest classes in their country, whether it be England, France, Switzerland, it doesn't matter. These are all wealthy people, right? This is the 18th century. This is the 1700s. Poor farmers don't have time to sit around and pontificate about what government should be. These are people that come from money. When they're talking about property here, they're talking about wealth. They're talking about individuals' wealth. And by and large, they're talking about the property and wealth that the wealthy people of their city, of their society has. We may know what a dog whistle is, we may not. In the literal sense, a dog whistle is, you know, obviously something that is sounded, a whistle blown. And in this particular case, as the term establishes, only a dog could hear. We're not going to be able to hear it. The same holds true in politics. There'll be phrases uttered that only certain people are going to pick up on because it's going to mean something different, right? It's a code word. If we were to go back to the Civil War, right? Civil War is about slavery. Make no mistake about it. It's about slavery. That's what it's about. But the South, they didn't talk about slavery. They talked about states' rights. They talked about what was and was not defined in the Constitution. States' rights is code word for slavery. We fast forward to the 20th century, time of the Civil Rights Movement, where the Civil Rights Movement will turn relatively violent in the 1960s, middle to late 1960s and into the 1970s. Republicans started campaigning on law and order, returning law and order, a war on crime, a war on drugs. We get into the 1980s with that. These are all dog whistles because they're referring to specific groups of people without ever having to refer to a specific group of people. We go into the 21st century, President George W. Bush, we have a war on terror. We have a war on terrorism. Well, there's a group of people who are very closely related to terrorism throughout the world. Doesn't mean everyone's that way. Doesn't mean every person who is a Muslim is a terrorist. But those terms have a very specific intention. And they're both being very specific with their intention about property. They are talking about the wealthy classes' wealth. They're talking about the richest people in their country. That's who they're talking to. The poor people don't have any property. I mean, we're just getting past feudalism where these people are, living on the land of the king and farming fields more or less to pay for their house. People don't have anything. Right? While Locke's form of government would more or less closely align to the United States, we need to understand that although people are born free and they have the opportunity to earn property, to grow property, to earn wealth, to build property, to make their lives better, we have to understand that there is an inherent inequality to the access that people have. Your wealthier people are going to have a much greater chance of achieving wealth, prosperity, longevity, and then passing it down to their future generations. But the opportunity still exists. It's just not an equal one. I thought that conversation was good. Very nice job with that, guys. If we're having any misunderstanding or confusion with this comparison between the two or dog whistles, I'll admit it's a little bit difficult me talking into my computer versus actually being able to have a conversation with you in person. Just shoot me an email or send me a message on the Schoology. What you have now for our classes on Thursday next, you have another DBQ. This one is from Montesquieu. I do need to change the dates here to the appropriate dates. You're looking at the spirit of laws. You're looking for the three sorts of power. You'll kind of ascertain what Montesquieu believes will happen if one person has all three sorts of governmental power. I think you guys already know what that is. You'll see a comparison between Italy and Turkey and to the other European governments. And then finally, you'll answer what type of government is Montesquieu advocating for. This is a little bit of a longer reading. These questions do not go in order. So you may have to read this top to bottom one or two times and then go back and start piecing things together. He kind of jumps around a little bit. These questions are more cumulative in nature than they are in chronological order. So this is what we'll pick up with on Thursday this week. I just noticed I got to move some questions here from my in-person class. But Montesquieu for Thursday, that is where we'll pick up, and then we'll begin knocking out our last philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, for the end of the week. Hope you're all doing well. Had a great weekend. Make sure to come around for the homecoming festivities, and I'll see you guys virtually on Thursday. Thanks.